Sometimes we're faced with the reality that most directorial ideas are left on the cutting room floor. This goes double for gaming content, which involves a plethora of reasons. Either there's a strict deadline that needs to be met, budgetary constraints, larger than life ideas that sounded better on paper, or design choices that clash amongst the vision of the team. These philosophies created a natural occurrence, an occurrence to make the best game available for launch day. Every team in the gaming industry does massive brainstorming when a very marketable idea comes into fruition. I'm sure you've probably already seen ideas like vivid concept art or initial design choices that never transcended off the page at all. This saddening prospect has also occurred with one of my favorite video game franchises, Resident Evil. Any long-lasting fan will tell you that this series alone has been filled to the brim with directorial exclusions. We saw specific changes that range from minuscule to bigger alterations that begged a few questions. An entire game was recycled from scratch. Since this notion tore through Resident Evil 2's development history, it tore through that history with a vengeance. Resident Evil 2 was initially conceived through a beta build called Resident Evil 1.5, and the story behind that was that Shinji Mikami was midway through development before scrapping the idea. Mikami said that the original concept became underwhelming to play before going back to the drawing board yet again. Obviously, we saw that reevaluating the ambitious nature behind Resident Evil 2 paid off in the long haul for the developers. In order to compensate for the impending delay, there was a new version of Resident Evil 1 put out on the market that will hold off salivating fans just a little bit longer. Resident Evil Director's Cut was a subsequent re-release that added in a few bonus features that were exclusive additions. The very definition explains that this particular recut is intended to fall in line with the director's wishes. This generally includes scenes cut from the version created for general distribution. A director's cut isn't uncommon in the mainstream. Same goes for expanded editions. You're basically getting the same game with a slightly different paint job under the guise that new content will cause players to give the game a second chance. Capcom succeeded in most areas by adding in alternate costumes, modes that rearrange items, alternate camera angles, new enemy loadouts, and giving players the ability to auto-aim weapons in Resident Evil Director's Cut. Other areas made no sense, like censoring the original gore-soaked intro that was promised to North American PlayStation owners. I'd like to pose a question, hoping that a potential discussion can link together from these philosophies. How does everyone feel about developers getting a second chance to re-release a director's cut or expanding upon older games to remedy unforeseen issues at launch? It's pretty obvious that we live in the digital era. Everything could be easily resolved with a grandiose patch. However, what if developers need more time? What if they need to do more substantial updates? What if more time is needed for a development cycle in order to iron out the kinks here? Where is the line drawn as a gamer, as a consumer, if you have a limited attention span and you can't wait any longer in between requests? I want to give my personal thoughts on this before I lend the textbook back to you, the audience. Expanded editions or director's cuts feels certainly reasonable to do if they are handled diligently. If we're talking about online, then I personally feel like those ideas create an ecosystem for better or worse. You're always bound to piss someone off if they pay full price for an older version only to find out that they have to spend another chunk of money to get the new definitive experience. It's even worse when players are locked out of competing against newer characters when everyone migrates to the newer version. This leaves legacy users in the dust, which Capcom has learned from recently released Street Fighter V shenanigans compared to the Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 fiasco. In UMVC 3, I think they have like different servers, so you cannot fight against vanilla players in the older games, which kind of sucks when that happens. If it's a single player experience, however, I think it's perfectly fine to keep it moderately priced at $40 if you're offering a lot of content. The payoff regulates to convincing the buyer, is it worth picking up an experience that I already played unless there's something there that's unique, that keeps me absorbed, that keeps me hooked into the title. Later Resident Evil 2 editions for the original game, like the DualShock release, added in Extreme Battle. That was like a survival gauntlet that required you to test your skill against varying degrees of difficulty and enemies. In Extreme Battle, you are tasked with bomb collecting. You are supposed to get from point A to point B with Chris Redfield, Claire Redfield, Leon S. Kennedy, and Ada Wong. Once again, it's very replayable to go back and experience Extreme Battle. I highly recommend it. There's also the RE5 Gold Editions and the RE7 Gold Editions that included all of the DLC content from both of those games into one package. There's also Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance that allow fans to toy around with the boss rush mode that was completely new to that edition of the game because Sons of Liberty did not have that. You want to know what else that Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty did not have compared to Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance? VR missions. Virtual reality syndrome. What's better than to raise the ultimate soldier by going around and shooting projectiles, by going around and playing multitudes of sneaking missions, by going around and hanging off ledges, being sneaky, killing enemies, shooting them with like sniper rifles and RPGs. Do everything to your heart's content. There's like about over 200 VR missions. It's crazy, it's nuts. Try it out if you really like that stuff. It adds longevity to the experience. It can go from new updates to general fixes like rebalancing to make Ninja Gaiden 3 more in tune with the second entry. Once Razor's Edge finally came out, they rebalanced the whole game and they put in some weapons that was in Ninja Gaiden 2 to make Razor's Edge flow better. I believe that the dual katanas are in Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge compared to the vanilla version where you only have the dragon sword and that's it. Like, they completely rebalanced the whole game. They fixed some things and they obviously didn't fix some things, but it's still something to take note of. I'm 100% under the firm belief that the content has to justify the repurchase, especially those that go above and beyond of what is initially expected from them by changing the entire meta of the game completely. Some of these changes can regulate themselves to superficial fixes that broadens the scope of the entire game sometimes. Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence was one of those changes where changing the camera perspective to be a wider third-person view made a hell of a lot of difference. Not only that, but the game also added in a lot of content like Snake vs. Monkey, and including the fact that you can now play the original Metal Gear 1 and Metal Gear 2 from the MSX days. Silent Hill 2 also had extra content re-implemented in the package in the form of Born from a Wish. I believe the Xbox had it first, but it was re-released under the Greatest Hits label later on the PS2 with the added content. It was kind of cool, I guess, to play with Maria in a sort of Silent Hill story. I guess it was pre-DLC before it was DLC. I guess we're venturing into those terminologies here. You could also find an extra incentive as well in the story if you decide to get the UFO ending, which is exclusive to that version. I think they only added that in the later updates of Silent Hill 2. If you give me a better experience with gameplay with a game I already love, then you might convince me to pick up the edition otherwise. If you don't, then it's a harder sell. Experiences are always evolving, changing, and games that already exist still have layers of depth to them. Would you be all for going back to an enhanced experience of the same game, or is every release just one and done to you and you don't go back to those games often even if they make additions? Sound off in the comments and let me know what you think about this. My name is Renegade Operative. I am signing out. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this opinion piece about director's cuts in gaming and my thoughts on director's cuts and expansions and expanded content. And hopefully, you know, I got the point across. Hopefully you engage in the comment section. Let's talk it up. I know I'm like slow on comments. I got to get back to them ASAP, but I will in due time. Remember clearly here, if you like the video, please leave a like on it. If you dislike the video, then dislike the video. Once again, you can subscribe. You can check me out in the social media below. below, my guy. The social media presence is below. Check me out on Twitter, you know, all that good shit. Share my channel out to your family and friends. You know, every little bit helps me out as a small content creator, so please try to help me out. All those options are, of course, free. And once again, I just want to hear back from you and make sure that, you know, I have definitely stirred some stuff up with this topic. Once again, you know, I'll see you guys next time. It is hot as fuck. I apologize if this end section is not all there, but the heat is killing me, so I'm gonna get off now. Talk to you next time. Be good people. Later.